Off Cape Finisterre by Alfred H. Miles. Towards the end of the year 1746, the French ministry came to a determination to increase their forces in Canada and, with the assistance of the native Indians, to extend their territories by encroachments on the neighboring provinces belonging to Great Britain. At the same time, they formed a design against some of our settlements in the East Indies. For these purposes, in the beginning of the year 1747, a considerable armament was prepared at Brest, the squadron destined for America being under the command of Monsieur Jonquière, and that for the East Indies under that of Monsieur de St. George. For greater security, these two fleets were ordered to sail at the same time. The British ministry, being informed of the strength and destination of these squadrons, sent a superior fleet, commanded by Vice-Admiral Anson, to the coast of France. This fleet sailed from Plymouth on Apeth, 1747, and cruising off Cape Finisterre on May 3 fell in with the French fleet, consisting of 38 sail, 9 of which shortened sail and prepared to engage, while the rest bore away with all the sail they could make. Admiral Anson first formed his squadron in line of battle, but perceiving the enemy begin to sheer off, he made a signal for his whole fleet to give chase and engage promiscuously. The Centurion came up with the sternmost ship of the enemy about 4 in the afternoon. She was followed by the Namur, Defiance, and Windsor, who were soon warmly engaged with 5 of the French squadron. The Centurion had her maintop mast shot away early in the action, which obliged her to drop astern, but she was soon repaired. The battle now became general, and the French maintained this very unequal conflict with great spirit and gallantry till about 7 in the evening, when the whole fleet struck their colors. The Diamant was the last French ship that submitted, after fighting the Bristol for nearly 3 hours. In justice to our enemy, it is necessary to remember that the squadron, commanded by Admiral Anson, consisted of 14 ships of the line, a frigate, a sloop and a fireship, with 922 guns, and 6,260 men on board, and that Monsieur de la Jonquière had no more than 5 line-of-battle ships and as many frigates, 442 guns, and 3,171 men. Admiral Anson in the meantime detached the Monmouth, the Yarmouth, and the Nottingham in pursuit of the convoy, and they returned with the Vigilant and Modest, both of 22 guns, the rest having made their escape. But though we acknowledge the great superiority of the British squadron, it is necessary to inform the reader that no more than 8 English ships were engaged. Captain Grenville, of the Defiance, a very gallant officer, lost his life in this engagement. Our number of killed and wounded amounted to 520, that of the enemy to 700. Captain Boscan was wounded in the shoulder by a musket ball. Monsieur de la Jonquière was also wounded in the same part. 1 French captain was killed, and another lost a leg. Admiral Anson returned to England and brought the captive squadron safe to an anchor at Spithead. He set out immediately for London, where he was graciously received by the king, and afterwards created a peer. Rear Admiral Warren was made Knight of the Bath. The money taken on board of the French fleet was brought through the city of London in 20 wagons and lodged in the bank. About the middle of April, Captain Fox in the Kent, with the Hampton Court, the Eagle, the Lion, the Chester, and the Hector, with 2 fireships, sailed on a cruise, designing to intercept a fleet of St. Domingo men under the convoy of 4 French men of war. After cruising a month between Ushant and Cape Finisterre, Captain Fox fell in with this French fleet of 170 sail. They were immediately deserted by their men of war, and 46 of them were taken. The British ministry, having received intelligence that 9 French men of war of the line had sailed from Brest in order to convoy a large fleet of merchantmen to the West Indies, ordered Rear Admiral Hawke, with 14 men of war, to sail immediately in quest of them. The admiral, with the fleet under his command, left Plymouth on August 9. The French fleet, consisting of the above-mentioned men of war and 252 merchant vessels, sailed from the Isle of Aix on October 6, and on the 14th they had the misfortune to fall in with the British squadron. As soon as the French admiral became sensible of his situation, he made a signal for the trade to make the best of their way with the Content and frigates, and for the rest of his squadron to prepare for battle. Admiral Hawke first made a signal to form the line, but finding the French begin to sheer off, he ordered his whole fleet to give chase and engage as they came up with the enemy. The Lion and the Louisa began the conflict about noon, and were soon followed by the Tilbury, the Eagle, the Yarmouth, the Windsor, and the Devonshire, which ships particularly shared the danger, and consequently the glory of the day. About 4 o'clock 4 of the French squadrons struck viz. Le Neptune, Le Monarque, Le Fauju, and Le Severn. At 5 Le Trident followed their example and Le Terrible surrendered about 7. Be it, however, remembered, to the credit of their several commanders, that they maintained this unequal conflict with great spirit and resolution, and that they did not submit until they were entirely disabled. Their number of killed and wounded was about 800, and of prisoners 3,300 men. M. Fromentieres, who commanded Le Neptune, was among the slain, and their commander-in-chief was wounded in the leg and in the shoulder. The English had 154 killed and 558 wounded. Captain Saumarez of the Nottingham was among the former. We lost no other officer of distinction. On the last day of October, Admiral Hawke brought these 6 French men-of-war to Portsmouth in triumph, and, in reward for his services, was soon after honored with the Order of the Bath. During this year the English took from the French and Spaniards 644 prizes, among which were 1 Spanish and 17 French men-of-war. The English vessels, including 1 man-of-war and a fireship, taken by the French and Spaniards, amounted to 551. The Royal Navy of Spain was now reduced to 22 ships of the line, and that of France to 31, whilst the Navy of Britain amounted to 126 sail of the line, besides 75 frigates.